Now, lie down in bed and get ready to listen to the story I'm about to tell. Let's begin. Before we start, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and like the video. The Vatican is the smallest state in the world. Just 44 hectares in size, yet the power it holds has shaped world politics for centuries. At the heart of this small piece of land is one man, the Pope, the leader of 1.3 billion Catholics. But who is the Pope really? What is his daily life like? When does he wake up in the morning? When does he go to sleep at night? What does he eat? Who does he talk to? And most importantly, how does his life change after being elected Pope? Tonight, we will answer these questions step by step.
We will go behind the walls of the Vatican.
From the Pope's private chambers to his secret meetings, we will explore everything from the darkest secrets of history. It's okay if you fall asleep, but have you ever wondered? Why does the Pope wear white, and is there an ordinary person under that white robe or something else? Now let's open the doors to this mysterious world. Your support is very important to us for better videos. You can subscribe to the channel. Enjoy watching. The papal election is one of the oldest and most secretive democratic processes in the world. This process, called a conclave, has worked almost the same way for centuries. When a pope dies or resigns, the highest-ranking officials of the Catholic Church, the cardinals, gather in the Sistine Chapel in the Vatican. The doors are closed to the outside world. No one can enter. No one can leave. No telephones, no internet, no newspapers.
Complète isolation.
These cardinals remain there until they elect a new pope. So why is this process so secret? The answer is simple: to prevent outside influence. The papacy is not only a religious office but also a political power. For centuries, kings, emperors, and heads of state have tried to interfere in the papal election. Sometimes they offered bribes, sometimes they threatened. The secrecy of the conclave was designed precisely to prevent these interventions. The conclave process works as follows. The cardinals gather in the Sistine Chapel every day. Each cardinal receives a ballot. They write their name on it. The ballots are collected and counted. For a cardinal to be elected pope, they must receive 1/3 of the total votes. If no candidate achieves this majority, the ballots are burned and black smoke is emitted. This tells people in the outside world the following: a pope hasn't been elected yet, and the voting is taking place once more. This process continues until someone receives enough votes. Sometimes it takes a day, sometimes a week, sometimes even longer. The longest conclave in history took place in 1966. It lasted 2 years and 8 months. The cardinals were confined for so long that the public grew impatient. Eventually, the locals tore down the chapel's roof, demanding that the cardinals hurry. Finally, when a cardinal secures the necessary majority, the ballots are burned again. But this time, white smoke emerges. Thousands of people waiting in St. Peter's Square cheer when they see this smoke, because they know a new pope has been elected. Shortly afterward, a cardinal appears on the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica. He makes an announcement in Latin, habemus papam, meaning we have a pope, and announces the name of the new pope. At that moment, the whole world hears the name. The new pope comes out onto the balcony, dressed in white robes, with a smile on his face. For the first time, he addresses millions of people. He gives his first blessing, and from that moment on, his life changes completely. So, what kind of life does the person elected as pope live until that moment? Most popes are born into ordinary families. They grow up in small towns. They go to school. They play with friends. They help with their family's business, but at some point, they feel a calling within. They want to become clergy. This journey usually begins in their youth. They go to study theology. They receive years of training. Then they become priests. They serve in a small church. They preach to their congregations. They visit the sick. They officiate at weddings. It's a period of humble service. There is no power, no prestige.
Only faith and devotion.
Years pass. Some priests begin to rise in the church hierarchy. They become bishops. They govern all the churches in a region. Then they become archpopes. They take on greater responsibilities, and if they are successful, influential, and respected enough, the Pope makes them cardinals. Becoming a cardinal is one of the highest ranks in the Catholic Church. Cardinals are the Pope's closest advisors. They shape church policies. They attend international meetings and, most importantly, they have the right to elect the next Pope. But being a cardinal is also a heavy burden, because every cardinal knows that one day he himself might be elected Pope, and when that day comes, his own life will end. Because becoming Pope means the end of personal life. From that moment on, the person elected Pope no longer belongs to himself. Every hour of the day is planned. Every move is monitored. Every word is recorded. There is no such thing as a private life. No family visits. No meetings with old friends. Only duty. And this duty continues until death.
The Pope's daily life begins in the early morning hours.
He usually wakes up at 4:30 or 5 o'clock. Yes, 4:30. Most of us are still in deep sleep at that hour. But for the Pope, the day has already begun. The first thing he does is pray. He prays alone and silently in his private chapel.
This is the most personal moment of the day.
There are no advisors, no cardinals, just him and his faith. This prayer session lasts about an hour. Then he performs the morning Mass. A small congregation attends this Mass. Vatican staff, close advisors, sometimes special guests. The Mass is in Latin or Italian. The Pope himself preaches. The topics change.
Mercy, justice, peace, poverty, love.
Popes often talk about current events as well. If a war breaks out, they call for peace. If there's a disaster, they send a message of solidarity. After Mass, it's breakfast time. But don't expect a lavish feast. Popes generally eat very simple meals. Bread, jam, fruit, coffee, sometimes yogurt or cheese. Pope Francis, for example, has a very simple breakfast. Sometimes he even just has fruit and water. Why? Because he identifies himself with the poor. He tries to live the way they live. This is a sign of humility. It's also a message that the Church exists not for luxury and wealth, but for service and mercy. After breakfast, the busy schedule of the day begins. The first meetings are at 8 or 9 in the morning. The Pope meets with the Vatican Secretary of State. This is a kind of prime minister, the Pope's closest political advisor. They discuss current events. Which country has a problem? Which crisis needs to be addressed? What diplomatic steps should be taken? Although small, the Vatican has a vast diplomatic network worldwide. It maintains diplomatic relations with 180 countries, each with an embassy. The Pope uses this network to contribute to world peace. For example, when a war breaks out between two countries, the Pope can act as a mediator, bringing the parties together and calling for dialogue. Sometimes he succeeds, sometimes he doesn't, but he keeps trying. After a meeting with the Secretary of State, it's the turn of other officials: the finance minister, the canon law expert, the communications director. Each reports developments in their respective fields to the Pope. The Pope listens, asks questions, and gives instructions. These meetings are usually short, around 15 to 20 minutes, because there are 10 to 15 meetings a day. If each one were longer, the day wouldn't be long enough. The Pope also has other things on his agenda besides meetings. Special visitors, heads of state, royal families, diplomats, and religious leaders. They all want to meet with the Pope. These meetings are usually longer, sometimes 30 minutes, sometimes an hour. The Pope receives visitors in his private room. They sit around a table, drink tea or coffee, and converse. The topics vary: human rights, refugees, the environmental crisis, economic inequality. The Pope generally speaks in a soft but firm tone, delivering his message clearly but never aggressively. Diplomacy is one of the Pope's most important tools. As lunchtime approaches, the Pope takes a short break. Lunch is again a simple meal: pasta, vegetables, a little meat or fish. Italian cuisine is usually preferred because the Vatican is located within Italy and many popes are Italian. However, recently there have been popes from different countries who prefer to eat food from their own cultures. For example, Pope Francis is Argentinian. He sometimes orders Argentinian food: empanadas, asado, mate tea. It reminds him of his homeland.
After lunch, a short rest.
The Pope spends about 30 minutes alone in his room. He looks out the window, thinks, and prays.
This is the calmest moment of the day.
No meetings, no visitors, no responsibilities. Just silence. This silence is very valuable to the Pope because he constantly speaks, listens, and makes decisions throughout the day. He needs a little respite. The afternoon schedule becomes busy again. More meetings, more visitors. Sometimes the Pope reads from special books or reports. The Vatican Library is one of the richest libraries in the world. It contains thousands of historical manuscripts, rare books, and ancient documents. The Pope has access to this collection whenever he wishes. Some popes are interested in history, some in philosophy, some in theology. Each has a different area of interest, but they are all hungry for knowledge, because knowledge is necessary for making the right decisions. As evening approaches, the Pope's day is still not over. Dinner is usually at 7 or 8 o'clock, again simple: soup, salad, and bread. Pope Francis usually eats dinner in the dining hall of the House of St. Martha, the Vatican guest house. He sits with other priests and Vatican staff. This reminds us that he is a humble leader who doesn't show off. Other popes preferred private dining rooms. But Francis is different. He likes to be among the people. After dinner, the Pope finds some free time. He watches television, reads books, or listens to music. Yes, the Pope watches television too. He usually follows news channels, what's happening in the world, what crises are there, what people are thinking. Sometimes he watches sports matches. Football is especially popular in Italy. Some popes love football very much. Late at night, the Pope performs his last prayer. He kneels in the small chapel of his chamber. He closes his eyes. He tells God what is on his mind: the day's fatigue, worries, hopes. Then he goes to bed. He falls asleep around 10:01 a.m., and the same cycle begins again the next morning.
At 4h30 du matin, the alarm ring.
The Pope wakes up, prays, performs Mass, attends meetings, and so it goes on.
24 juillet.
No holidays, no weekends. The Pope's life is literally a service. Now let's get to a deeper question. How powerful is the Pope really? Is he just a religious leader or someone who influences world politics? The answer: both. The Pope is the head of the Catholic Church. This automatically gives him a huge sphere of influence. There are over 1 billion Catholics in the world. These people listen to the Pope's words, heed his advice, and trust his leadership. When the Pope says something, millions of people hear it. That's incredible power. But the Pope's power isn't limited to religious matters. Throughout history, popes have intervened in political events. They excommunicated kings. They stopped wars. They forced peace treaties. They initiated crusades. In the Middle Ages, the Pope was the most powerful person in Europe, sometimes even more powerful than emperors, because the Pope had a spiritual weapon in his hands: excommunication. If the Pope excommunicated someone, that person was removed from the church. A funeral service could not be held. They could not go to heaven. This was the greatest fear for people at that time. Therefore, even kings feared the Pope's threat of excommunication. In the 11th century, there was a power struggle between Holy Roman Emperor Henry IV and Pope Gregory VII. Henry wanted to appoint bishops of his own choosing, but Gregory opposed this. He said that only the Church could appoint bishops.
Henri insisted.
Gregory excommunicated him. Henry's authority was completely shaken. The nobles turned against him. The people did not support him. Finally, Henry was forced to apologize to the Pope. In the winter of 1077, he went to the fortress of Canossa in northern Italy. He knelt before the Pope. He waited for 3 days in the snow. Finally, the Pope pardoned him. This event shows how great the Pope's power was. He could make an emperor kneel. But over time, the Pope's political power diminished. During the Renaissance, nation-states began to strengthen in Europe. Kings were no longer so dependent on the Pope. They were building their own armies, making their own laws, and determining their own policies. In the 16th century, the Protestant movement began. Martin Luther criticized the Catholic Church. He said the Pope could be wrong, that the Church should be reformed. Millions joined him. Europe was divided into Catholics and Protestants. The Pope's authority was shaken. He was no longer the leader of all Christians. He was only the leader of Catholics. In the 19th century, Italy entered a process of unification. Papal states had controlled central Italy for centuries. But Italian nationalists wanted this land. In 1870, the Italian army occupied Rome. Pope Pius IX took refuge in the Vatican palace. He declared himself a prisoner of the Vatican. There was no longer a large territory. There was only a small area with a few buildings. The Pope's worldly power was almost completely gone, but his spiritual power was still strong. In the 20th century, the Pope re-emerged on the world stage, but this time in a different way. He no longer commanded armies or excommunicated kings. Instead, he spoke as a moral authority. He had a voice on issues such as human rights, peace, justice, and the fight against poverty. Pope John XI issued an encyclical, Pacem in Terris, in 1963. He called for peace, opposed nuclear armament, and emphasized the universality of human rights. This encyclical resonated widely throughout the world. The Pope was now speaking not only to Catholics but to all of humanity. John Paul II, perhaps the most influential Pope of the modern era, was elected in 1978. The first Slavic Pope from Poland, he fought against communism. He supported the Solidarity movement in his own country, Poland, which eventually overthrew the communist regime. Some historians say that John Paul II played a significant role in ending the Cold War because, through his spiritual leadership, he gave courage to millions. Today, the Pope's power still exists, but in a different form. There are no armies, no territory, but the impact of his voice remains. When the Pope says something, world leaders listen. The media shows interest, and public opinion reacts. Pope Francis, for example, pays great attention to the environmental crisis. In 2015, he issued an encyclical called Laudato Si, criticizing climate change and questioning consumer culture. He defined protecting nature as a religious duty. This encyclical provided great support to environmental movements, even leading some political leaders to change their policies. The Pope's words are still important. He may not command armies, but he appeals to consciences, and this can sometimes be more powerful than armies. The Pope lives in the Vatican, the world's smallest independent state, only 44 hectares, about the size of 60 football fields. But this small piece of land possesses immense history and cultural richness. At the center of the Vatican is St. Peter's Basilica, one of the largest churches in the world. The interior is magnificent. Massive columns, gold decorations, frescoes, and sculptures.
Look at the architect who designed the Basilica, Michelangelo, Bramante, Bernini, the greatest names of the Renaissance.
Peter's Basilica is not just a place of worship. It's also a work of art. Stepping inside is breathtaking. The ceiling is so high it's dizzying. The dome is so huge you can't keep up with your eyes.
À statue in every corner, à fresco on every wall.
All of these were made centuries ago, but they are still as magnificent as they were on day one. There is a crypt under the basilica. Here lies the tomb of St. Peter. Peter was one of Jesus' apostles. He played an important role in the early spread of Christianity. He came to Rome and preached here. But the Roman Emperor Nero persecuted Christians. Peter was also captured and crucified. But Peter did not want to be crucified like Jesus. He said, "I am not as valuable as Jesus." Therefore, he requested to be crucified upside down. And so it was done. He lost his life and was buried. Centuries later, a church was built over his tomb. This church eventually transformed into the Basilica of St. Peter today. Therefore, the Vatican is not just a random place. It was built over the tomb of one of the founding figures of Christianity. Another famous place in the Vatican is the Sistine Chapel. Here is Michelangelo's famous ceiling. The creation scenes, God giving life to Adam, the prophets, the prophecies, all are depicted in fresco. Michelangelo worked on this piece for 4 years, lying on his back, gazing at the ceiling. Paint drips fell onto his face and eyes, but he persevered. Because Pope Julius II commissioned him, and he was insistent. He said this chapel would be the most beautiful chapel in the world, and so it was. Today, the Sistine Chapel is part of humanity's shared heritage. Millions of people visit every year, admiring Michelangelo's works. The Vatican museums are also among the richest museums in the world. They contain ancient Greek and Roman sculptures, Renaissance paintings, Egyptian mummies, ancient maps, and old weapons. The Vatican collected works of art for centuries. Popes placed great importance on art, seeing it as a means of reflecting God's glory.
A beautiful painting, a sculpture, a fresco elevate the human spirit, bringing it closer to God.
Therefore, the popes commissioned the best artists and brought them to the Vatican. They established workshops for them, and thus the Vatican became a center for the arts. But the Vatican isn't just famous for its art and architecture. It's also known for its secret archives. The Vatican's secret archives are where documents accumulated over centuries are stored. They contain papal letters, diplomatic correspondence, court records, and excommunication decrees. Some documents are over 1,000 years old. For a long time, these archives were closed to the outside world. Only the Pope and a few officials had access. This led to many conspiracy theories. People wondered, what is the Vatican hiding? What secrets are in these archives? At the end of the 19th century, Pope Leo XIII opened parts of the archives to researchers. Today, historians can access the archives under certain conditions, but there are still inaccessible sections. Documents from the last century, in particular, are kept secret. Why? The Vatican says these documents contain sensitive information. If published, they could harm individuals or institutions, but critics are suspicious. Could the Vatican really be hiding embarrassing secrets? At certain times in history, the the Vatican made controversial decisions. During World War I, Pope Pius didn't speak out enough against the Nazi genocide of Jews. Some accused him of silence. Some said, if he had spoken more Jews could have been saved. Others defended him, arguing that if he had spoken more harshly, Nazi Germany would have attacked Catholics as well. This debate continues, and there are documents from that period in the Vatican archives, but not all of them have been released. Perhaps they will be released in the future. Perhaps they will never be released. Now let's move on to another question. Does the Pope have a personal life? Are he completely focused on his duties, with feelings, friendships, and hobbies? The answer is, the Pope is also a human being. But the duty is so heavy that there is very little room for personal life. However, every Pope has a unique personality. Some are more introverted, some more extroverted. Some like to joke, some are serious, some are bookworms, some love sports. Pope John Paul II, for example, loved skiing in his youth. He would go to the mountains. Even as Pope, he would take walks in the Vatican gardens. He loved nature. He also wrote poetry. As a young priest in Poland, he acted in plays. He had an artistic soul. But when he became Pope, these hobbies took a back seat because there was no time. Pope Benedict XVI was an academic, a professor of theology. He had written hundreds of articles and books. Even as Pope, he continued to write. He penned a 3-volume book about Jesus. He loved music, especially Mozart. He sometimes played the piano in the evenings. But again, time was limited. Pope Francis, on the other hand, is more populist. He embraces a simple lifestyle. He doesn't drive luxury cars. He doesn't wear expensive clothes. After being elected Pope, he didn't move to the Vatican Palace. He said, "It's too big, too lonely." Instead, he continued to stay at the house of Saint Martha. It's a kind of guest house. Other priests and visitors also stay there. Franciscus eats lunch in the dining hall in the mornings. He chats with other people. He says he likes being among people. This is part of his personality. He doesn't like ostentation. He values humility. But does the Pope have friendships? Yes, but limited.
The Pope can't be friends with just anyone.
Because every relationship can be interpreted as a relationship of self-interest. If it is said that the Pope loves this cardinal more than that one, it could cause division within the Church. That's why the Pope has to maintain a distance. But he still has some close advisors. These are people he trusts, with whom he shares his secrets. Usually, he can talk more comfortably with these people, who are priests or cardinals he has known for many years, joke with them, and share his concerns. But even these friendships are overshadowed by the office. Because the Pope is always the Pope, his work is never finished. The Pope's health is also an important issue. The papacy is very physically and mentally exhausting.
Constant travel, long meeting, emotional burden.
This is very hard for an aging person. Throughout history, many popes have fallen ill while in office. Some have lost their lives. Pope John Paul II struggled with Parkinson's disease in his last years. His hands trembled. He had difficulty walking, but he did not leave his post. He remained Pope until the end. He passed away in 2005. Pope Benedict XVI, on the other hand, made a decision that went down in history. He resigned. In 2013, he said that he was getting older and could not adequately fulfill his duties, and he gave up being Pope. This was the first time in centuries that a Pope had resigned. The last Pope to resign was Gregory V. In 1415, no Pope had resigned since then. Benedict's decision caused great controversy. Some appreciated it.
À courageux décision.
Others criticized it. The Pope should remain Pope until death. But Benedict was resolute. He resigned. And now there are two popes in the Vatican. One is the active Pope Francis, the other is the retired Pope Benedict. This is a unique situation. Now let's move on to a darker subject.
The scandal of the Vatican.
Yes, the Church may be a sacred institution, but the people within it can make mistakes. Throughout history, the Vatican has been involved in many scandals: corruption, bribery, sexual abuse. These scandals have greatly damaged the Church. They have shaken people's trust. One of the biggest scandals erupted at the end of the 20th century: the sexual abuse of children by priests. This came to light worldwide. In America, in Europe, in Australia, thousands of victims bravely began to speak out. They said, "When we were children, priests mistreated us. They abused us, and the Church covered it up." These allegations were confirmed. Investigations were conducted. Guilty priests were found. But worse, it turned out that the Church administration covered up these abuses. Guilty priests were not dismissed. They were reassigned to other regions. The victims were silenced. This created great anger against the Church. Pope John Paul II did not act harshly enough on this issue. He was one of the critics. Pope Benedict XVI paid more attention to the matter. He excommunicated some priests and apologized. But this was not enough. Pope Francis took more decisive steps on this issue. He declared a zero-tolerance policy. He ordered the immediate dismissal of guilty priests. He demanded compensation for the victims. He even established a special commission for abuse cases. But critics still say it's not enough. More transparency is needed. All documents should be made public. The perpetrators should be punished, they say. This scandal dealt a major blow to the Church's reputation. Many people left the Church. Some they lost faith. Some have lost faith in the Vatican. This is a deep crisis, and it could take years to emerge from it. Perhaps generations. Another scandal is financial corruption. The Vatican has a bank, the Vatican Bank, or officially the Institute of Religious Works. This bank handles the Vatican's financial transactions. But for years, this bank has been associated with allegations of money laundering, tax evasion, and corruption. In 1982, a major scandal erupted. An Italian banker named Roberto Calvin was found hanging under a bridge in London. He had bricks and a fake passport in his pocket. Calvin did business with the Vatican Bank, but things had gone wrong. Millions of dollars had disappeared. Whether Calvin's death was a murder or a suicide is still debated. But one thing is certain: the Vatican Bank was involved in shady dealings. Over the years, demands for reform have increased. Pope Francis has tried to clean up the bank. He established oversight mechanisms. He brought transparency. He removed some executives from their posts. But some people still look at the Vatican's financial transactions with suspicion. All these scandals show that the Vatican is not perfect. The people within it make mistakes, err, and sometimes do evil, but this does not invalidate the faith itself. The Church is an institution. Faith is a belief. They are separate. Pope Francis frequently emphasizes this. He says, "The Church is sinful. We are human. We make mistakes. But God is merciful. He forgives us, and we must learn from our mistakes." This is a humble approach and perhaps the only way for the Church to regain trust. Another interesting aspect of the Vatican is its secret meetings and rituals. The public is very curious about this. Are there secret ceremonies held in the Vatican that no one knows about? Are there secret societies? The Vatican certainly holds private meetings, but they are not as mysterious as described in conspiracy theories. Cardinals meet regularly. They discuss church policies. These meetings are called consister. The meetings are usually held behind closed doors because some topics are sensitive: financial problems, personnel changes, doctrinal issues. These topics are not disclosed to everyone, but this secrecy is not malicious. It is simply an internal working method of the institution.
Another secret organisation is Opus Dei.
This is an organization affiliated with the Catholic Church. It was founded in Spain in 1928. Its aim is to experience holiness in daily life. Its members work in ordinary professions: doctors, teachers, lawyers, but they also lead deeply religious lives. There are many theories about Opus. Some say it's a secret society, possessing great power and influencing world politics. But Opus denies it. They say, "We are just devout Catholics. We have no hidden agenda." The truth is probably somewhere in the middle. Opus Dei. Yes. It's an influential organization. Its members hold important positions in society, but they don't have a plan for world domination. Such theories are usually exaggerated. The Vatican also has the Swiss Guard.
These are the Pope's personal bodyguard.
They have colorful uniforms: orange, blue, red. They carry spears. It's a very medieval image. But the Swiss Guard aren't just decorative, they are real soldiers. They undergo rigorous training. They know how to use firearms. They put their lives on the line if the Pope is in danger. At one point in history, they actually did. In 1527, Rome was sacked by Emperor Charles V. At that time, Pope Clement VII was under siege in the Vatican. The Swiss Guard fought to the end to protect the Pope. 147 guards lost their lives. But the Pope survived. This sacrifice became a symbol of the Swiss Guard's loyalty. Even today, a new guard takes an oath in a ceremony upon assuming office. "I would give my life to protect the Pope if necessary." Now let's move on to another question. How is the Pope elected? We know this, but what qualities are required to become Pope? In theory, any Catholic man can be Pope, but in practice, almost every Pope is a cardinal. Because cardinals know each other. They have worked together. They have attended meetings together. They know a cardinal's leadership capacity, theological knowledge, and diplomatic skills. Therefore, they usually give their votes to one of the cardinals. But in history, popes who were not cardinals have also been elected. When Urban VI was elected in 1928, he was not a cardinal. He was an archbishop. But the cardinals voted for him because they trusted him. What qualities are sought in a papal candidate?
First, a deep faith.
The Pope must know Catholic doctrine well. He must be an expert in theology. Second, leadership ability. The Pope will lead more than 1 billion people. This is a great responsibility. He must be strong, decisive, but also compassionate. Third, diplomatic skill. The Pope will meet with world leaders and discuss sensitive issues. He must know the art of diplomacy. Fourth, language skills. The Pope speaks with people from many countries. He is expected to know at least Italian, Latin, and English. Some popes speak 5 languages.
Fifth, physical and mental health.
The papacy is very demanding. It is difficult for an elderly person to bear this burden. Therefore, cardinals also consider the candidate's health when voting. But sometimes elderly cardinals are also elected, because their experience and wisdom are valuable. Sixth, moral character. The Pope should not have a scandalous past. He should have a clean record, because the Pope will speak as a moral authority. If there are inconsistencies in his own life, his words will not carry weight. Cardinals also think strategically when voting. They ask themselves what the Church needs right now. If the Church needs reform, they elect a reformist Pope. If it needs stability, they elect a conservative pope. If it needs dialogue with the world, they elect a diplomatic pope. After Pope Benedict XVI resigned in 2013, the cardinals met. At that time, the Church was in crisis. Sexual abuse scandals, financial corruption, power struggles within the Vatican. The Church needed a fresh start. The cardinals pondered. Who could manage this crisis? Who could give the Church a new direction? And they chose Jorge Mario Bergoglio, an Argentinian cardinal. The first pope from Latin America, he named him Francis, inspired by Saint Francis of Silicon, a saint who lived in the 13th century and symbolized poverty, humility, and love of nature. By choosing this name, Pope Francis sent a message: I will be a different kind of pope. I will stand with the poor. I will avoid ostentation.
Il will protect nature.
And he truly did. The election of Pope Francis is historic in many ways.
The first Latin-American pope.
The first Jesuit pope. The Jesuits are one of the most disciplined and intellectual orders of the Catholic Church. They value education and missionary work. Francis became a Jesuit priest at a young age. He taught in Argentina, giving chemistry lessons and working with young people. Then he became Archbishop. He served in Buenos Aires. There, he would go to poor neighborhoods. He would talk to people in slum areas. He would walk the streets. He was among the people. These experiences shaped his approach as Pope. When Pope Francis arrived at the Vatican, he immediately began making changes. From day one, he showed humility. He didn't move into the papal palace. He didn't use the luxurious Mercedes that served as the papal car. Instead, he used a small, fat van. He even sometimes traveled by minivan. People were shocked. Is this how a pope should be? They asked, but Francis didn't care. Jesus lived like this too, he said. Franciscus also changed his language. Previous popes generally used formal theological language. But Franciscus speaks in simple, understandable language. In his sermons, he gives examples from daily life, makes jokes, and makes people laugh. This makes him closer to the people. Franciscus's most important emphasis is on poverty. He says there should be a church for the poor. The church cannot sit in its palaces.
It must go out into the streets, feed the hungry, treat the sick, and embrace refugees.
These messages disturb the traditional base of the church. Some conservative Catholics criticize him. They say the Pope speaks too politically. He should only focus on spiritual matters. But Franciscus is determined. Jesus also cared for the poor. We should do the same, he says. In 2015, Franciscus visited the United States. He gave a speech in Congress. He talked about climate change. He talked about immigrants. He opposed the death penalty. He criticized economic inequality. Some American politicians were uncomfortable, but Franciscus didn't care. He continued to deliver his message. Another important action of Franciscus is the fight against corruption within the Vatican. When he came into office, the Vatican faced a series of financial and administrative problems. There were power struggles among the cardinals. Some were putting their personal interests before the interests of the Church. Francis decided to change this. He dismissed some high-ranking officials. He appointed new, trustworthy people. He established financial control mechanisms. He brought transparency. But this move also earned him enemies. Those who were dismissed began to criticize him. Some cardinals did not like his methods. They said he was too harsh, too hasty. But Francis did not back down. He said, "The Church needs reform, and I will do it." There is another interesting event in Francis's papacy: an agreement with China. For centuries, there has been a tense relationship between the Chinese government and the Vatican. Communist China was trying to control the Catholic Church, appointing its own bishops, which the Vatican did not recognize. In 2018, Pope Francis took a bold step, signing an agreement with China. According to the agreement, the Chinese government would nominate bishop candidates, but the Vatican would approve them. This was a compromise. Some Catholics supported this agreement, finally establishing dialogue with China. Others criticized it, saying the Vatican had bowed to the communist regime. The debates continue, but Pope Francis defends it. Dialogue is always good. We need to open doors, not close them. Now, let's talk a little more about the Pope's daily routine. We mentioned that he prays and conducts Mass in the mornings, but the Pope also provides individual spiritual counseling. Some people request private meetings with the Pope. These are usually people experiencing a deep crisis in their lives. Someone who has gone through a family tragedy, lost their faith, or is searching for a way forward. The Pope sits down with these people individually, listens, comforts them, and prays with them. These meetings can be very emotional for the Pope because he witnesses people's suffering. But these meetings also inspire the Pope. He sees people's resilience and hope, and that gives him strength. The Pope also writes letters regularly. Thousands of letters arrive at the Vatican every day from around the world. They ask for prayers, they ask for advice. Of course, the Pope cannot read all the letters, but his secretaries select some, especially heartbreaking stories. The Pope personally responds to these letters. Yes, sometimes just a few lines in his own handwriting. I heard you. I pray with you. God is with you. But even these short replies are very meaningful to people. Because the Pope hasn't forgotten them, he cares about them. Another of the Pope's duties is to visit Catholic communities around the world. The Pope goes on long journeys several times a year. He goes to Africa, to Asia, to Latin America. These visits have both religious and political significance. The Pope organizes mass rallies in the countries he visits. Hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of people attend. They gather in stadiums and squares. The Pope speaks, prays, and gives blessings. People greet him with enthusiasm. Some cry, some sing, some try to touch the Pope. These moments are incredibly emotional, but these visits can also be dangerous. The Pope is in open spaces. There are security risks amidst large crowds. Throughout history, there have been assassination attempts on popes. The most famous was in 1981, when Pope John Paul II was addressing a crowd in Street Peter Square. Suddenly, a gunshot rang out, and the Pope was shot. A Turk named Mehmet Ali Agassi shot him. The Pope was seriously wounded and rushed to the hospital. He underwent surgery but survived. His recovery was lengthy, but he eventually returned to his duties and did something astonishing. He forgave Mehmet Ali Agassi. He visited him in prison, spoke with him, and said, "I forgive you." This was one of the most powerful examples of mercy and forgiveness. Today, the Pope's security is much tighter. He uses a special vehicle called the Pope Mobile. It's bulletproof, but it's still not completely safe, because the Pope loves being among the people. He wants to go into crowds. He wants to kiss children. This worries the security teams. But the Pope doesn't listen. He says, "If I stay away from people, what's the point of being Pope?" The Pope's travels are not limited to Catholics only. The Pope also meets with other religious leaders. Orthodox patriarchs, Protestant bishops, Jewish rabbis, Muslim imams, even Buddhist leaders. The Pope attaches great importance to interreligious dialogue. We all believe in the same God, just in different ways, he says. This approach is criticized by some conservative Catholics. They say the Pope is weakening the uniqueness of Catholicism, but the Pope counters. Dialogue does not weaken faith, it strengthens it. In 1986, Pope John Paul II organized a historic meeting in Assisi. He invited religious leaders from all over the world. Christians, Muslims, Jews, Buddhists, Hindus all came together. They prayed together for peace. This was the first time this had ever happened. Some criticized it, saying, "Is it appropriate for different religions to pray together?" But John Paul II insisted, "Peace is our common goal.
We can pray together."
This meeting was a significant milestone in interreligious dialogue. Pope Francis is continuing this tradition. In 2019, he visited the United Arab Emirates, becoming the first pope to visit the Arabian Peninsula. There, he met with Muslim leaders and held a mass attended by tens of thousands of Catholics, many of whom were workers from Asia and Africa. The Pope addressed them, saying, "You are not alone here. The Church is with you." Also in Abu Dhabi, Grand Imam Ahmed Al-Taib signed a document.
The document on human fraternity.
This document emphasized that different religions can coexist peacefully. It stated that violence, terrorism, and hatred are contrary to religion. This was a historic moment. Another important element in the Pope's life is his relationship with young people. The Catholic Church realized that young people were distancing themselves from the Church. Especially in Europe and America, young people find the Church's teachings old-fashioned. They disagree with the Church on issues such as sexuality, homosexuality, and the role of women. This is a major problem for the Church, because the future is in the hands of young people. If young people distance themselves from the Church weakens. Pope John Paul II recognized this problem.
Et initiated World Youth Days.
Every few years, millions of young people gather in different cities around the world. The Pope meets with them, holds services, speaks, and listens. These events give young people the opportunity to rediscover the Church. Pope Francis gives special messages to young people. You are the future of the world, but not only the future, you are also important now.
Raise your voice. Stand up against injustice. Protect the environment. Act with love.
These messages resonate with young people because Francis doesn't just preach, he calls them to action. In 2018 and 2019, youth seminars were held in the Vatican. Young people were invited, they expressed their ideas, and voiced their criticisms. Popes and cardinals listened. This was a new approach for the Church, because traditionally, the Church operates from top to bottom. But now, a bottom-up dialogue was being initiated. Another important demand of the youth is a real solution to the sexual abuse scandal. The youth are very clear. If the Church does not take serious steps on this issue, we cannot trust the Church. Pope Francis received this message. He said, "You are right. This is shameful, and I will do everything I can to stop it." But the youth want to see actions, not just words, and this is a great pressure on the Pope. Another area of interest for the Pope is science. The Catholic Church has had a tense relationship with science throughout history. The Galileo case is the most famous. In the 17th century, Galileo stated that the Earth revolves around the Sun. But the Church believed that the Earth was the center of the universe. Galileo's views were declared heresy. He was tried by the Inquisition. He was forced to renounce his views. He was sentenced to house arrest. This became a symbol of the tension between science and the Church. For centuries, the Church viewed science with suspicion. It rejected the theory of evolution and criticized the Big Bang Theory, but in the 20th century, the Church began to change its stance. Pope Pius XII said in 1951 that the Big Bang Theory could be compatible with God's creation. Pope John Paul II accepted evolution in 1996. He said, "Evolution is not just a hypothesis, it is a scientific fact," but added, "Evolution can explain the development of the body, but the soul was created by God." This was a point of compromise between science and religion. Today, the Vatican has its own Academy of Science, the Pontifical Academy of Sciences.
The world's most distinguished scientist Gatheder.
Astronomy, physics, biology, medicine, conferences are organized, research is conducted. The Pope attends these meetings, listens to the scientists, and learns from them. Pope Francis is particularly interested in climate science. Is climate change real? Scientists are clear. Yes. Is it human-caused? Yes.
Is it a serious threat?
Yes. The Pope takes this information into account and speaks based on science in his ecumenical laudatory. The Vatican also has one of the oldest observatories in the world. The Vatican Observatory was established in the 19th century. Today it operates with a modern telescope in Arizona. Vatican astronomers study space. They research planets, stars, and galaxies. Some are surprised. Why is the Church interested in astronomy? The answer is simple.
The universe is God's creation. Understanding the universe is understanding God.
Therefore, science supports faith. Another important element in the Pope's life is art. The Vatican has one of the richest art collections in the world, and every pope is obligated to preserve this heritage. But some popes have shown a special interest in art. During the Renaissance, popes made large investments in art. Pope Julius commissioned Michelangelo to create the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. Pope Leo X supported Raphael. Pope Paul III accelerated the construction of St. Peter's Basilica. These popes believed that art was a way to glorify God. But these art expenditures also drew criticism. In the 16th century, Martin Luther criticized the Vatican's luxury, saying that while the Pope lived in golden palaces, the people were starving. He said the Church was selling promises of heaven for money. Luther's criticisms triggered the Protestant movement, and the Church split in two. Today, Pope Francis seems to have learned this lesson. He protects art but avoids luxury. He says, art belongs to the people. Everyone should be able to see it. The Vatican museums are open to the public, and millions visit them every year. Because these works of art are not only the Church's heritage but also humanity's common heritage. The Pope also has quiet moments in his life. Prayer, meditation, contemplation. The Pope is not a constantly talking, constantly visible figure. He also needs silence. He takes solitary walks in the Vatican gardens, sits among the trees, and listens to the birds. These are moments of spiritual renewal for the Pope, because the task is very heavy. Constantly making decisions and constantly dealing with people is tiring. Silence gives the Pope inner peace, renews his faith, and strengthens his connection with God. Some popes have particularly valued silence. Pope Benedict XVI often retreated into solitude. He would go to the mountains. There, without any meetings or visitors, he would remain only with his books and prayers. He said that silence was necessary to hear the voice of God. Pope Francis also knows the value of silence, but his approach is somewhat different. He believes that one can find God by being among people. God is in the face of the poor. He is in the hand of the sick. He is in the tears of the refugee. Now let's move on to a slightly darker subject. Is the Pope's life under threat? Throughout history, many popes have been assassinated. In the Middle Ages, the papacy was sometimes a bloody power struggle. Families fought for the papacy. There were poisonings, assassinations, and conspiracies. Some popes lost their lives after serving only a few months. For example, Pope John VII was elected in 1055 but died 8 months later. It's said he was poisoned. Pope Benedict XII was elected in 1340, but he had rivals. There were 3 pope contenders simultaneously. This led to great chaos. The Church was divided. Each group recognized its own pope. This crisis lasted for years. In the modern era, popes are safer, but the threat hasn't completely disappeared. We've already discussed the assassination attempt on Pope John Paul II. Pope Paul VI was also attacked with a knife in the Philippines in 1970, but he sustained minor injuries and survived. These events show that the Pope's life is always at risk. Because the Pope is not just a religious figure, he is also a political, social, and ideological figure. Some people support him, some are his enemies. Today, the Pope's security is taken very seriously. Swiss guards are constantly around him.
Secret Service agents scan crowd.
Technological devices detect threats. The Pope is mobile and bulletproof. But still, the Pope is not completely safe. Because the Pope refuses to be isolated. He wants to connect with the people, and that always means risk. Tonight we tried to understand the Pope's life. A life that leads millions, from waking up at 4:30 in the morning to praying late into the night, but with no personal memories of his own. Behind the walls of the Vatican are magnificent basilicas, secret archives, secrets from centuries ago. But the greatest truth is this: the Pope is also a human being. He gets tired, he gets sad, he feels joy. He strives for world peace, but sometimes he feels helpless. He protects the poor, but he grapples with the scandals of the Church. Like the pyramids, the papacy is one of the great mysteries of human history. Built not of stones, but of faith. An institution that has stood for thousands of years. A leader trying to change in a changing world. Perhaps not all questions have been answered. Perhaps some of the Vatican's secrets will never be revealed, but one thing is certain. The Pope's story is the story of humanity.
Power and humility, faith and do, open the disappointment, all together.
Now perhaps your eyes are closed, or perhaps you are lost in thought. In either case, we have completed this journey together.
When you wake up tomorrow morning, the Vatican will still be there.
The Pope will still be praying. He will still be attending meetings. He will still be delivering messages to the world, and we will continue to wonder about this mysterious life from afar. In the next video, we will discover another secret together.
Good night for now.